Right, let's move to our attention to all things fitness, if we can. Why? Well, we saw a great headline yesterday. Saudi Arabia embracing fitness. GymNation seeing record 12,000 sign-ups in just 3 days ahead of their KSA openings. Now, look, that's going to come as great news to the team behind GymNation. In fact, we've got Lauren joining us in just under an hour's time or so. But it's also good news to those that have backed the GymNation brand. None more so than our next guest, the team from Ruya Partners, an independent private credit firm based out of Abu Dhabi, whose investor base include institutional funds from the GCC, including the UAE sovereign-backed Abu Dhabi Catalyst Partners, joint venture between Badla Capital and Alpha Wave Global, and Jada Fund of Funds, a subsidiary of Saudi Arabia's PIF. Joined now in studio by one of the partners of Ruya Partners. It is Omar Yawer, who joined us live this morning. Omar, thanks so much indeed for joining us nice and early.
Great to be back, Tom. Thank you for having me.
Listen, we've met on a couple of occasions. We've talked about your investment in, or the credit investment, the credit line, and we'll get to definitions in a few moments' time about GymNation. But one of the reasons that you did it was expansion across the region. When you see those numbers that are making headlines today about the subscriptions over just 3 days, as soon as you go to market to Saudi Arabia, that must be justification for what you expected.
It's an excellent point and something that we're quite proud of and quite excited about with our friends and partners at GymNation. They're carrying out exactly what they set out to. One of the most interesting part about GymNation is the founders. So we typically like to back founders like GymNation, founders where they have their own skin in the game. They live and breathe the brand of GymNation to the point where Lauren even moved now. He's in Riyadh, so you're probably going to be speaking to him from there. You know, they don't hand it off the growth for such a large market like Saudi to somebody else that they hire. They do it themselves with a capable team below them, of course. So these numbers are just the beginning. I mean, think of it this way. If they have 75,000 members just in UAE today, Saudi Arabia is 3 times the size in the market in terms of addressable market. And they're just beginning. So we think these numbers are going to be quite more interesting in the next few months.
Let's go back to the end of last year. I mean, I say the end of last year, but obviously the negotiations would have gone on for a lot, and the due diligence would have gone on for a lot longer before that date. But that's when we got the announcer that you had brought private credit investment support to GymNation's management-led buyout of all equity previously owned by JD Gyms as well. It was a significant amount of money, 94 million Saudi riyals, $25 million or thereabouts. Just out of interest, because a lot of our listeners out there will be going, okay, so was this an investment? Was this a buyout? Was this, how was it? How do you explain private credit investment and a line of private credit investment to companies?
Sure. Well, to demystify that, effectively what we do, we don't buy an equity into the business. We effectively give them a loan.
Yeah.
Private credit loan, the reason it's called private credit, it's effectively going to private held companies. They're not publicly listed. And they have different reasons that they need that. For the case of GymNation, they wanted growth finance, but before the growth can kick in, they needed to buy back their share from JD Sports, which was a FTSE 100 listed company out of the UK, who decided to diversify away from non-core assets, particularly in the Middle East. We understand the Middle East, we understand the UAE, and specifically GymNation, which we've been following for 5 years. So sometimes people think, oh, this is a great deal. They must have just talked to them this year. In reality, usually we talk to these founders first time around 3 years before, 2 years before. We watch them, we monitor them. They get to the right stage where our investment or our private credit loan makes sense for their business. We only give loans to these businesses that they can sustain being able to grow along with this financing solution that they have. And GymNation is one of those that proved that this actually is a great investment so far.
Really competitive market, this one. Health, wellness, the gym business at the moment. No shortage of international brands in market and at market as well. A lot looking to expand here in the region. How important was the homegrown element of this?
You know, having an idea is fantastic, and proving yourself in international markets is a great sign of success. However, the Middle East, you need to be on the ground. You need to know what the actual local economy needs and actually wants, and where the gaps exist. So if you sit in London or New York, respectively, and running a great gym chain, and you just think, well, here's a white space, let me just send a team there. One person that runs, what happens, you'll see a lot of other gyms that have come up, great well-known names internationally, but they just kind of fizzle out. Why? Because you can't have one person running all that. You need a proper team. So GymNation, the founders, there are several guys, which I'm sure you've probably spoke to most of them by now. They live and breathe GymNation's growth, and they've done it in a systematic way. They've addressed the gaps, and before you know it, they overtook many of the names that we knew, as in the main names I used to go to the gyms to their competitor before they came up. And so you need people have skin in the game. It's very different than having somebody who's hired to do this versus somebody who owns the business and actually running with it.
You mentioned we're going to be speaking to them a little later on. Just before that as well, though, I mean, I'm interested when you mention this significant investment from you and your partners at Ruya as well. How much influence do you have on the decision making? Are you like the sporting director that sits above the management team as well?
I wish we would have that kind of overhang. The reality is, look, from part of our thesis as Ruya partners, and there are other private credit centers that have come and gone in the region. What we humbly say, we're trying to be different in that we're not just partners internally, we're partners externally. So when we give these financing solutions to these business owners, part of the due diligence is, are they also a partnership mindset? Are they, where we can add value, we'll step in. If there is something that we don't have a know-how, we sit back and stay silent. So during the negotiations, we kind of agree on, well, should we have a seat on the board? As a credit facility, usually most credit facilities don't have a seat on the board. We do. So we have a seat on the board to actually give them input from our side to say, hey, perhaps if you're going into Saudi, maybe have you thought about this or have you thought about that? So it's a kind of a partnership mindset that typical financiers don't have. Typical financiers give you a loan. Here's a 5-year loan, 4-year loan, pay me on time or else. That's the typical mindset, hence why most people, particularly in the Middle East, have historically shied away from financing. I don't want debt. I don't want debt. Because for them, the idea of debt is you're indebted to somebody, and that somebody can come in and take over your business. The reality of what we're doing in private credit, particularly in Ruya, is that we're extending a partnership mindset to say, here's what we're good at. We're able to help your business grow. We don't want to interfere with what you already known to do. You're growing their gym chain significantly well. You're doing phenomenally well there. We don't know how to run that business, but there are areas where we can. So for example, if we introduce them to some of our current investors, as they build out their brand further, they need equity to come into the business, or they need more locations to find in Riyadh, for example. We have that network effect that we can help, and they see that value. And when they see that value, they realize that this is no longer an equation of, here, they just give me debt and we'll see them in 5 years. No, we speak to them on almost a daily basis. That's unheard of before.
30 seconds remaining with you. We've spoken GymNation. Energia is in the portfolio, as is Stars Play. We had Maz in that seat yesterday as well. 30 seconds. Anyone else added to the portfolio by the end of the year?
There's at least a couple more transactions, which I unfortunately can't disclose yet.
That's fine.
But there's similar types, both in UAE and Saudi. Growth capital, that's really the lion's share of what we're seeing is the need is to grow in Saudi, grow in UAE, and expand throughout the MENA region.
Omar, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. Congratulations with the affiliation with all things GymNation. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Omar Yawer is the partner at Ruya Partners.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.